giving peace a chance.
This is 1 Hour, and I'm Barbara Waters. Tonight, an interview with Sandistan's Prime Minister, Simon Prokova, who earlier this week in Davos, Switzerland, signed an historic peace agreement between Sandistan and the new country of Deseret. Good evening, Mr. Prime Minister.
Good evening.
Mr. Prime Minister, the world is simply amazed and delighted that your country signed this peace agreement. What was the immediate effect of this peace agreement?
The first thing was an immediate ceasefire.
Have both parties honored the ceasefire?
Oh yes, so far.
What will happen next?
Well, now we have to begin talks to work out the details.
Are you going to relocate your citizens who live in the new country of Deseret?
That is one of the many things we have to work out. But will they want to be relocated? After all, they have built homes there. If they don't want to be relocated, can they continue to live there after our troops are no longer there to protect them?
Will the other people who live there be able to govern themselves?
That's a good question. I'm sure they want to govern themselves, but I'm not sure that that will be economically possible.
Do you think they can get help from other nations?
Absolutely. I'm sure Deseret's leaders would never have entered into these agreements without assurances of some economic aid.
Will you cooperate with the new government? After all, you once considered them rebels.
Well, we will have to move slowly, of course, but I'm sure that with time relations will become normal.
Are your people happy about the prospect of peace?
Those who believe that we will really have peace are happy, but some people are having trouble trusting our old enemies. They don't believe we are free from war and terrorism yet.
When do you think all the details will be settled?
It's hard to say. We are all willing to work very hard in the next few weeks. I would like to say that it will take 1 or 2 months, but I really don't know. It depends on how smoothly things go.
Where are you going to hold the first negotiations?
First, we are going to Oslo, Norway. Then we are going to Paris. Maybe we won't have to go anywhere else after that.
Well, the whole world will be hoping for your success. Thank you for being with us here tonight, Mr. Prime Minister.
Trust the heart.
Melissa sat alone by the empty swimming pool, watching the sun begin to set behind the palm trees into the ocean beyond. She sat as she had done so many times, thinking of that last fight 2 weeks before. She remembered how Don had at first denied being with Teresa, but then, when she had forced him to admit it, how he had apologized and begged her for forgiveness. She frowned a little as she thought of her harsh words, and how Don, the only man she had ever really loved, had broken down and cried like a baby when she had refused to see him again. That was 2 weeks ago, and she had heard nothing from him since. She hadn't wanted to call him. She might want to admit that she had been unfair, or to tell him how much she regretted calling him a liar. She might even say that she hadn't meant to hurt him. Then she would be a liar too. She had meant every word. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps startled her. She turned, and through the gloom she thought she could make out Don's familiar figure. Was it him? Could it possibly be? The approaching figure stepped into the last patch of sunlight, and the last rays of the setting sun illuminated his dark, curly hair. He stopped, unsure of himself. "Oh, Don," she said softly, trying to control her voice. "What are you doing here?" "Melissa," he cried, "don't send me away." She sighed deeply as he ran to where she sat. He took her hands tightly in his. "My darling," he whispered, "can you ever forgive me?" She started but checked herself. "I guess I'm partly to blame, but He interrupted her. That's all in the past. Let's not ever talk about it again, not ever. Darling, promise me something. What? She asked cautiously. Here, this is for you. Please, please accept it and wear it forever. He drew a small leather box from his pocket and leaned forward to give it to her. Suddenly the box fell from his grasp. He bent to pick it up, and at that moment his glasses slipped from his nose. Damn! Now where have they gone? I can't see a thing without them, he explained. Melissa leaned over the arm of her chair to help him. There was a crunch as his foot crushed the glasses. Oh, no! Now I've stepped on them, he exclaimed. Why can't I do anything right? Why do I always ruin everything? Her laughter pealed around the pool. Oh, Dawn, you are incredible. Who could hate somebody like you? I might even love you.
And they lived happily ever after.
Simon and Rachel were married recently at Walt Disney World in Florida. Their wedding was a Disney fairy tale wedding.
When Simon and I met 3 years ago, I remember telling all my friends that he was my Prince Charming. Later, when we had gotten to know each other really well, I told him about it. So he started calling me Cinderella. Right after we decided to get married, we heard that we could get married at Disney World. Well, not in the park itself, but at the hotels that are part of Disney World. We couldn't resist.
Rachel looked beautiful. She was wearing a long white satin gown, and she rode to the reception in a glass carriage drawn by 6 magnificent white horses. I was waiting for her outside the hotel, along with 100 guests.
The ceremony was lovely. We had decided to write our own vows, but apart from that, we had the usual traditional service. We brought along our own minister from Cincinnati, and my maid of honor was my sister. Simon's best man was his best friend, and the ushers and bridesmaids were friends and cousins. All the men wore tuxedos, and all the women wore long gowns. I walked down the aisle to the traditional "Here Comes the Bride," but after the ceremony, Simon and I walked out to the theme of Beauty and the Beast.
The reception was amazing. It all took place in front of a 60-foot-tall replica of Cinderella's castle, complete with twinkling lights. Actors playing the roles of the fairy godmother and Cinderella's stepsisters mingled with the guests. Between eating and dancing, you know, the normal things that people do at weddings, there were 3 stage shows. For the finale, the cast performed When You Wish Upon a Star, and fireworks erupted from the roof.
The food was wonderful, by the way, and fit into the whole Cinderella theme. For dessert, each guest got a chocolate slipper filled with mousse. When it was time for us to leave, we got back into the glass carriage and rode away. It was a beautiful day, a real fairy tale come true, and now we get to live happily ever after.
Departures.
Yoshiko Kyo has been studying English at a college in California. She'll finish the course at the end of this week. She's going back home to Tokyo on Saturday.
Streamline taxi.
I'd like a cab to San Francisco International Airport for Saturday morning, please.
Okay.
There'll be 3 of us. How much will it be?
What's your address?
I'm at 128 Cortlandt Avenue.
We charge $45 for that trip.
$45 each?
No, that's all together. What time do you want to leave?
Check-in time is 12 noon, but I don't know how long it takes to get there.
Well, we'd better pick you up at 11 o'clock, just in case traffic is heavy. Let me have your name and address.
Yes, okay. The first name is Yoshiko. That's Y-O-S-H-I-K-O. And the last name's Kyo. K-Y-O.
Kyo, 128 Cortlandt Avenue. Okay. 11 o'clock Saturday morning. Thank you.
Come in.
Hi, Mr. Berman.
do you have a minute? I just stopped in to say goodbye.
Oh, going back to Japan. When do you leave?
Tomorrow. My flight is at 2 o'clock.
Well, have a good trip back. It's been nice having you here, Yoshiko.
Thank you, Mr. Berman. Well, I just wanted to thank you and all the other teachers.
We've all enjoyed having you as a student.
I've really learned a lot. I hope to come back next year on vacation.
Send us a postcard and let us know how you're doing. And come see us if you do get back.
I'll do that.
Oh, there's the bell. Bye, Yoshiko. Have a good trip.
Bye, Mr. Berman, and thanks again for everything. Carlos, I'm glad I didn't miss you.
Hi, Yoshiko. When are you leaving?
Tomorrow around 11 o'clock. I guess I won't see you again, so goodbye. It's been great knowing you.
That sounds so final. Let's keep in touch, okay?
Oh, sure. You have my address, don't you?
Yeah. And remember, if you're ever in Caracas, look me up. I'd love to see you again.
Oh, I will. You can count on that. And you do the same if you're ever in Tokyo.
Sure. Well, goodbye.
Bye, Carlos. Take care.
Yoshiko, the taxi's here. Are you ready? Do you have everything?
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Simmons. And thank you again.
Thank you, Yoshiko, for the pretty plant. Now don't forget to write as soon as you get home, just to let us know that you got there safe and sound.
Okay. Or maybe I'll call when the long-distance rates are low. The time difference is a mess, but I'll make sure I don't call in the middle of the night.
You're so sweet, Yoshiko. Goodbye now. You'd better not keep the taxi waiting. Travel safely. Bye.
Bye. Take care. Say goodbye to Mr. Simmons for me.